Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of the Avengers Omnibus. This is volume 2. You can see all the details of the people involved. Of course, there were more than that. And all the covers. They're all the way through there. Of course, some really good. There's all details there and collecting all the things. And it's got 31 to 58, annuals 1 to 2, and also X-Men number 45. Also includes some not Brand Echh. I don't know why I never include that in the listing at the back as well. The book itself, really nice quality. Now I've just got volume 1 as well, been thoroughly enjoying reading that and also reading through all the stories here, of course all the details. I always love the fact they always colourists, uncredited. I always put that. They really should put a little bit more detail there, I think. There you can see 1966 all the way through to 1968. Then great little article there by Roy Thomas. I always enjoyed Roy Thomas ones. Gives a lot more details. Not everything. Sometimes of course even his memory of what happened, the various reasons behind why something happens, like Hercules and those sort of things. Never bug a giant. Now, that wasn't a very good story. I mean, it's mainly a Goliath story. Of course, big clue with the giant bit there. But the keeper, unfortunately, he was not. But still, Zap, or whatever it is. Yes, it was Zap. I didn't even look at that word Zap. Virtually, you can imagine it's going to be a Zap at that point. Now, Captain America and characters do turn up. Also, of course, got the letters pages. This is the one thing that I love about omnibuses, the letters pages. And they're always great to read through. Sign of the Serpent. That was a great one. That was a classic, of course. So just come back and they, of course, as always, that intruder alarm is always going off. It turns itself on during our absence. Never thought I'd be the first. You think they'd have like a code on the door, type it in, sort of make certain they can go in. Got decent Captain America obviously involved there, and he's been captured. I think they continued that later on. The Serpent certainly did turn up again to smash a serpent. Of course, there's the usual twists at the end, and I'm not going to spoil that. But it was still, there's Don Heck, the artist at the point. Living Laser. They really start, there was a few, obviously with the Sign of the Serpent, it was great. But Living Laser was a sort of a bit, one of the most deadly super foes in the act. Well, he's pretty powerful, I guess. But really, is he really? I don't know. The Living Laser. Don't think so. But still, the lights that failed. I don't know if they include, because there was some, yes, this cover, there's a bit of a change. I think there was the way they put that figure. It always just looked a bit ungainly. Even, you could see that, you think that just looks odd. I mean, the Living Laser is a really bad shot most of the time. He's sort of blasting away there, and he's not even noticing the fact Hawkeye's just going to get him. Maybe just turn around and I'm not even. I suppose Goliath was aiming to save him at that point, but why is his arm stretched out the other way? Counterbalance, maybe. I don't know. It was always annoying the fact he kept on saying, "Oh, I can't do it because it might be fatal." Every week. I'm glad Atom never went down that route. I just don't know why they introduced that, just to make it complicated. Oh, I can't go to 25, then he collapses or whatever. Then he shrinks down again. It was just, really? It just adding a weakness for weakness' sake, I always thought. Now, the Ultroids attack, yes, that was one of the ones I just didn't like. It was okay. There was nothing wrong with it. Got a very unusual Scarlet Witch. Sorry, that's a spoiler. But still, there's another twist at the end. There you got, obviously, now Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. They did turn up once in a while. They'd sort of appear and then they didn't disappear. Then they appeared. I wish they'd just stayed. It was always, again, that was another one of the things at that period. I thought, why not just have the characters all the time instead of... Well, they didn't. And then they introduced, of course, Hercules. Good old Hercules. And I suppose they felt that they needed that extra strength. Maybe, obviously, I mean, Goliath was not particularly, though amazingly sometimes super strong, and then other times really sort of couldn't do much. He was lifting some really huge things at times. And I'm thinking, I'm not certain that could be possible, even if you were 25 foot. It's just, but still, I guess that's why they introduced Hercules. Now, Hercules also was quite useful for a couple of other stories, but I don't think they really developed Hercules in the way that they could have done. There was a lot of things, him sort of going down to earth, being obviously among mortals, that I felt they could have done a little bit more with. But still, they were decent enough tales, and it was good with obviously the Enchantress and Executioner back again. Then we got here the Mad Thinker. They did go through a run of very sort of average sort of villains at this point, and that was... not really suitable, I don't think, for the sort of the power that the Avengers really should have had. They should have been facing the sort of Doc Doom, sort of Red Skull, the real power players, but they always end up with Mad Thinker, who always, of course, yeah, it was just annoyed me most time, Mad Thinker. You know, he could have put his uses, his brain to greater uses. Still, this was a good one. Suddenly the Submariner. And it's actually got one of my favourite endings, I think, in probably all of the comics. I don't think there's a better ending of the comic. I'm not going to spoil it, but everyone must know the ending. If you've read the book before, you know exactly what happens. But this is a Cosmic Cube story. Obviously, it's a Cosmic Cube story. But you wouldn't guess it from the cover. But the cover's a bit of an odd one for the Cosmic Cube. Suddenly the Submariner. Why suddenly? They always had that, didn't they? That alliteration. But still, and the way that Hawkeye again is sort of. But I guess it was a great opportunity, of course, for Hercules to sort of challenge someone with obviously Submariner. But it was also quite good that he was the one that sort of causes the problem in the first place. But still, on to the next story, because I don't want to show the ending because I think it's one of my favourite endings. And again, another Roy Thomas. Always great. I'm really pleased they put these real long ones. And again, unfortunately, they're all a long time ago, 2005. But obviously, they're Marvel Masterworks ones, I assume. So you got here, lots and lots of details, all of various, and he's, gives a lot of things like about Basima, all those sort of fill-in issues and things. Avengers 48 turned out to be another fill-in issue, which affected a new character I concocted. Mid-50s, I loved the short-lived Stan Lee, Joe Maneely Black Knight comic. I enjoyed those as well. So it was good to see Black Knight, but it was an unusual reintroduction. I was always never totally convinced by it, but still, it was good. Let's Sleeping Dragons. And again, another sort of like, though I suppose Diablo is not bad. I mean, it's, and also having the Dragon Man, I love that. And the ever delightful, no less ever delightful Dragon Man. And of course, at this point, Black Widow gets taken off to there's another parallel story, Psychotron. I always thought that was pretty cool. The dreaded spectre of 1,000 unending nightmares. I mean, look at that. What a great set. I mean, what is that? It's just, is that, no, that's not the Psychotron, but it's just, would you put that in the middle of a building just like that? What a lift. The Plan and the Power. And this corner, Hercules versus the deadly dynamic Dragon Man. Another alliteration. They love those. The Plan, the Power. What would they do without those alliterations? But I enjoyed all of these ones where they were all just sitting around. And I always felt they could have done more stories with them just sitting around having sort of eaten a few grapes. That would have been a good, you don't have to rush off and always have adventures battling against Diablo or whatever. This one was a good one. Colour Him Red Guardian. Now that story, of course, was later in the film. But I love the fact that suddenly, mysteriously, Quicksilver has got a new power. He can fly. Why didn't they continue with that later on? I don't think that, I really can't recall. There's a few scenes where he's sort of like flying a bit, but it's sort of like completely forgotten about later on. You can do limited flying. That's the way they get around that. But I never thought that they did really much with that. They could have done a lot more. But this, of course, was the brilliant one. King Size Special, The Avengers, issue 1. I love that one. That was just such an epic story. And really one of those first stories, I don't think they'd done it any time before that, in the fashion of the old Justice Society of America or Justice League of America. Most of those ones, often they do these stories where they pair off. They're always paired off. Wonder Woman with Hawkman or something, blah, 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 with someone else. But here, we got the stories like that, which was really, 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 really good. Men call me the Mandarin. Let's see who the powerful people I can get. Mandarin. And he, of course, brings in a couple of the living laser. But you've got this, where you've got these sort of combination ones. Not maybe the world's Thor and the Hawkeye, but still, it's good. They, of course, carried that on when they did the Defenders War, Avengers Defenders. I don't think they did it too often, but I really enjoyed it when they did do that sort of combo stories. Also, you've got a good old biography. This is one thing I always feel that they should include in omnibus biographies. At the back, they never include a biography. A little bit. Got a brief sort of here, the creators, which is fine. But I wish they would do a good 10, 15 pages on the back, sort of giving all details about maybe their best works and all those sort of things. You know, sort of give a bit, maybe a little picture or two of their best works. I love these things. These ones also are great. So you can look at, but I'm surprised they never brought out a book. And it really amazes me. Of course, you've got that one, the pin-up ones, where you've got all the various things. But a similar sort of book where you've got all like the breakdown of all the buildings. You know, Daredevil's legal office or something, and you could see all the pictures. Or where Peter Parker goes to work or something, you know, whatever. Those sort of, or the Daily Bugle, all the building layout. I always enjoyed that. I quite often would get books that were filled with those sort of things. They used to have, the Eagle. You get cutaways. Eagle cutaways, and they would show all these sort of things, and you think, the Arsenal TV transmission centre. I wonder if they ever kept all these things. It's all well and good putting in these books, but you'd have certain people turn around and say, hang on, they walk from that room into that room, and it doesn't match. I love that. The original Avengers and New Avengers. I wonder if that was a hint or an idea for a future story, because, you know, good old super adaptoid. One of the sort of powerful, so that's how, look at that, you've got Iron Man, Thor and Hercules. But it was a real good one with, and of course he adapts, he should always win. You think he always should win. It's sort of like a Mazo character, he's got all the powers, why does he always lose? And of course he's got the powers of the Cosmic Cube, apparently. I never realised that was a sliver of the Cosmic Cube or something. Whirlwind, what dramatic there, the whirlwind. Now this story could have been a classic. The Magneto ones, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was fine. I mean, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Magneto walks the earth, but it still could have been a true classic with the storyline of, you know, Magneto facing the Avengers. There wasn't many of that. Of course, he later one was 110, 111 of the Avengers. But Magneto should have been one of those characters that turned up a lot more, I think, in the Avengers. And it was a bit of a dud of an ending. That was the trouble I always felt with that story. Even the artwork is a bit odd, actually. Who did the artwork? When you look at this, you think, yeah, George Tusker. Not one you normally associate. I always wondered, actually, just thinking, well, who did that? Because it's certainly noticeably different. Now, I'm not very good when it comes to someone says, oh, that's George Tusker. I should, of course, recognise it, but I don't. Depends on the inkers sometimes as well. This one's George Tusker again, but it was an odd set of stories. The Black Knight lives again, and that was obviously introducing the Black Knight, and it was good that they introduced the Black Knight. I always felt there's lots of characters they should have brought back from the 1950s. See, Venus being one of them. I don't know why they never introduced Venus. Now, she would have made a brilliant character in the Avengers. Could have done that. Obviously, later on with the Atlas, Agents of Atlas. And then you, of course, got this one, John Buscema. Now, that was a much better story. It's amazing. Look at that brilliant cover. To Tame a Titan. This was one of the weird ones. That's why I felt it was slightly wrong about this story. And maybe it was described in the essay why it happened. But this character, Typhoon, I think it was his name, wasn't it? Typhoon, issue 50. Just wrong for issue 50. It's sort of mainly a sort of Hercules story. And, you know, fine, I mean, very dramatic. But just odd. Just odd to do it. Especially when you got the next story. And again, another brilliant essay again. This one feels more like the story that should have been in the issue 50. Or the Magneto conclusion would have been an obvious choice for 50, not the sort of Typhoon story. But this one, in the clutches of the Collector. I mean, the Collector's always a bit of a non-villain. And one I think they could have used a lot more in the Marvel Universe. They could have had him as a much more interesting character than he ever plays as a villain. I think it's unnecessary, but still, that's. But I thought that they could have done more with this as a 50th story. Because you got Thor back, you got Iron Man back, even though they sort of like disappear again. They don't really stay around very long. They turned up obviously later, but it's, you know, but it's good little story all the same. Even if it's a bit odd, because if this guy had this sort of potion that he can use on Thor, why didn't he just use it more subtly on everyone? Over time, he could have basically taken over the entire Avengers very subtly. No one would have known about it. But instead, he sort of like has this sort of conflict straight away. Seems to be a flaw in the plan a bit. But anyway, me a quibble on that. Because, you know, you could sort of get them all controlled and then reveal a bit later when there's only one left. And then, of course, that one person has to battle against the Collector. Anyway, that's my writing the story. The Grim Reaper. Now, this one is really good, but of course, God introduces the Black Panther in a very odd story, actually, because the Black Panther is accused of the murder of the Avengers. The man who killed the Avengers. Grim Reaper, obviously. In many ways, it's an unusual one because it really sort of doesn't show the Avengers. And most time, these covers, when they do them, they always like to put the character, obviously, people see it in the shelves, and they'd go, oh, Grim Reaper, is that a new hero or villain? You know, there you even got the actual Avengers ripped. So it makes it, you know, that sort of devalue it, part of CGC, wouldn't it? Who knows? Ripped cover like that. But still, good introduction to Black Panther, as well as, of course, into the Avengers. Then we get this. The X-Men finally think, oh, you know what, we've got to finish this story off. And there is Quicksilver, who is actually flying, sort of flying. Again, his limited flying ability. At least they remembered that he could fly. I always love that one. The X-Men featuring the sense-shattering Cyclops. Again, a very weird cover. So you think you go to the shop and you're going, am I buying Cyclops? Number issue 1, because I've never seen Cyclops before. But it's the X-Men. X-Men's like really featuring the Cyclops. Just odd. Just the way they've done that. When mutants clash. The new Masters of Evil. 54. I love the Masters of Evil. You've got the Melter. And you've got Radioactive Man. Obviously you've got Claw. Now that should be a pretty powerful team. I suppose they didn't introduce the Living Laser. Should have had him in, shouldn't they? Oh, I love this one. And the enigmatic Black Knight. I love those ones where they did that. Just at the bottom next. And you've got the Crimson Cowl. The twist in the storyline. And actually introduces one of the major villains of all time. Or one of them anyway. Obviously Kang and all those sort of things. But there's obviously a major one that's pretty indestructible. This is a classic. I love that one. That's just one of the John Buscema one. Again, just Death Be Not Proud. I just love that start. That splash. And of course, even the cover there is brilliant. I've mentioned it many times before. I've always disliked the death of Bucky Barnes. I always felt that was such a missed opportunity for a storyline. Why? I know, of course, later on there's all the Winter Soldier and all that sort of stuff. But back in the day, I always felt, why? Why kill him off? Wouldn't it have been better that Zemo had captured Captain America, put him in deep freeze or something? The Avengers battle Zemo and release him. Because of the super soldier serum, he then ends up sort of not aging. But Bucky does age. So you suddenly would get Bucky up to the same age as, of course, Captain America, and it would have introduced, and also he could have captured like Betty or something, those sort of things, and some of the other characters. They could have, and then that would have solved all the problems of not having to put him in an iceberg. I just thought, what? And then sort of Bucky holding on to the plane. That was just terrible. And they, of course, they had an opportunity here to rewrite that. Maybe that wouldn't have been a good thing. I don't like rewrites of those sort of stories, but it's a time machine story. As soon as you mess around with Doc Doom and time travel and everything else, it's virtually guaranteed for disaster, isn't it? But I'm drowsy. It says, yes, I must, she goes. And of course, they reappear and Zemo's there with his mask on and all that sort of stuff, jumping from place to place. There's always, and time travel, anything time travel, people always come back to their what they think is their time. And of course, it isn't. Though, why would they think it's their time when they've got the original Avengers there? I still didn't really... I love this one. Avengers 2 is one of the classic, one of my favourite annuals of all time. But I'm still slightly critical of it because there was apparently the Scarlet Centurion, who of course we know later is a certain other time traveller, but it's just that he uses mild hypnotic. Why not just hypnotic? But still, uses hypnotic powers to convince the original Avengers, my apologies, spoilers again, there's always spoilers here, that he's, you think, really? But would they be able to beat all the villains? I mean, there must have been at least 300 villains in the Marvel Universe. They could have called. What about all the other villains, all the monster ones? Did they defeat them as well? That's going to take a lot of time. Then all the Atlantis, all the various other characters. Avengers Assemble. I think that's a really good... I love those stories. And of course, it goes on to the next... Oh, no, it's got a bit more. Actually, one of the classics, of course. One of the classics, Behold the Vision. And of course, not Brand Echh. Now, the extras are not great. They're okay, but they're not brilliant. It's not a huge amount. And again, this is one I'm always slightly critical. Oh, Avengers model sheet. Actually, it shows you the point that obviously they thought, well, maybe there were some other sheets as well, of course. Who knows? But this one, obviously, Quicksilver is on that. And, yeah, I think Hercules, obviously Captain America, Goliath and Hawkeye. I'm actually surprised they didn't put in proportion to show, well, of course, Goliath is sometimes 20 foot, 5 foot or 12 foot or whatever it is. You know, you can see him there. You think they would have sort of pointed that, that out. And that actually doesn't show proportions as well, really. I mean, Hawkeye looks about the same size as Hercules, and I don't think that would have been the case. But still, you got here Avengers, suddenly the Submariner. Classic one, Game of Cosmic. And they've got some lovely original art there. John Buscema, of course, there. And Vince Coletta. Now, they've, of course, got these again. The Marvel, giant-sized Marvel triple action. I don't remember that in the shops. Must admit, that passed me by, those issues, which is surprising. I did enjoy the Marvel triple actions, but the giant-sized ones I don't recall. But it's sort of, obviously that one isn't the cover of anything. The Sons of the Serpent. But they've done a few. And again, I don't know why they changed some and not others. Because you've got here, these are all the same covers. They look the same as the originals. This, what was that for? The Living Laser. Maybe they didn't feel that the Living Laser cover was very good. Bit weird. And that as well. Another, obviously, looked probably, maybe, don't know. Marvel triple action there. Oh, covered by Jack Kirby. Is it Jack Kirby? Dan Atkins. That is so odd. Really? Who was that one by? That was Rick Butler. That one. Actually, that was an unusual one. I've seen that one somewhere else, that triple action. I don't know where that... Oh, yeah, I was going to say, that's from page 25. So they obviously took something from the inside the story. And then they've also got these usual sections at the back. Still, I love most of this. But again, there's a few duff stories as I've gone through and mentioned in various things. But I still think this is an excellent book. Avengers Omnibus Volume 2 is a great addition to the collection. I've got number 3, number 4. I've got all the others in epics. So I'm just thinking I'm not going to go probably for Volume 5. I might not. I don't know. At some point I might think, oh, I'll go for Volume 5. Anyway, thoroughly enjoyed this. Absolutely lovely book. Avengers Omnibus just come out. Volume 2. Totally recommended.